What's up, legends, and welcome back to another Meta Monday video. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different, or I should say new. We're going to be doing a ladder salmon. And if you don't know, because why would you? SALMON is an acronym I made up. It stands for Seasonal Analysis of Ladder Meta and Other Novelties, because, well, we'll get into why that's important in a little bit. Let's say hi to all the people watching this video at 1.5 speed, and oh, there they go. And one more thing for this episode, it's going to be a little bit podcast-ish. I'm not really going to be too heavy into the graphics, so if you want to put me in your pocket and go for a nice walk while listening to this, that seems like a great idea, and I will let you know when there's something on the screen that you should look at if you are watching it otherwise. If not, hopefully you're making a nice pasta dinner for you and your loved ones tonight, and you are enjoying the sweet, sweet nothings of my voice. All right, let's get right into it. Let's get started by first just going over Ladder, because I haven't talked about it in any official capacity on this channel yet. It is a competitive seasonal thing hosted on the Unmatched League, or UMLeague website. That's a wonderful website designed by Frank K. You should go check it out. There'll be a link to it in the description. Basically, Ladder is a seasonal competitive format where for a month there will be a set group of fighters that you can play with, and there are different ranks, and if you win games, you go up the rank, and eventually you can get all the way to the top if you grind enough. But it's interesting to me because there's a set amount of heroes. It's not every single hero that's in the game. So the meta for each season will be different based on which heroes are available and which matchups they have based on the other heroes that are available. And that's where this whole salmon idea comes from, because I love analyzing metas, and in the grand scheme of competitive, the meta is very stagnant usually because sets don't come out too often. Like last year, the only set that came out was Deadpool. I guess Little Red and Bale came out at the end of 2020, but 2021 was a very, very vanilla year in terms of change. So that meta got figured out pretty quickly, which is why I like analyzing ladder metas, which is why I want to start making these videos. And for every season of Ladder, I'll just talk about the heroes and what I think will happen during that season. And of course, this is kind of a prediction-ish video. Most of the data I use will be just purely anecdotal, but it's my anecdotes, so maybe that means a little bit more than some other people. And this is just an activity that I find really interesting, and hopefully hearing my thoughts will be interesting for you as well. So this is season 2. Season 1 was in February and March. There was season 1.5, which I made a video about last week. That was an April Fool's Day special, a little bit of a weird meta with all the weak fighters. And this is season 2. It will be for the month of April. And here are the 10 fighters in the ladder this month. We have Alice, Beowulf, Bloody Mary, Ghost Rider, InGen or Muldoon, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, King Arthur, Little Red Riding Hood, Luke Cage, and Moon Knight. All 3 of the Redemption Row heroes are in this pool of fighters, and I actually am on the kind of design team that curates the roster for each season of Ladder. And something we're going to generally do going forward is whenever there's a new set, such as Redemption Row, when that comes out, we'll put all of those fighters into the pool of heroes so that people playing online can play with the new heroes and have some fun trying to figure them out. My cat is over here trying to chew on the laptop charger. Get it out of here. He's a sweet cat. So what do I think about this roster? I guess we're going to go through all the heroes individually and just talk about some strengths that they might have and some other weaknesses that they might have, and just generally what their matchup spread looks like. Alice is someone that I'm not normally huge on just because she is a little inconsistent. I talked about her consistency, or I should say lack of consistency, in my consistency video. I just said consistency a bunch. Oh boy. But she has just a huge amount of strength because of her ability. Having an extra +2 damage on attacks is really, really good. And blocking an extra 1 damage when she's small is also nice, but generally being big is better. She just has some huge damage output And her defenses aren't too shabby. It's just getting things to line up properly is the issue there. So she doesn't really have, like, she doesn't necessarily counter people necessarily. I think she's good into people with poor defenses like Robin Hood or the Raptors. But out of this lineup, I think Bloody Mary probably suffers from enemies that have attack bonuses that are not inherent to their value, like Achilles or Alice or the Raptors. Alice is probably good into Jekyll and Hyde and probably also King Arthur, but I don't think she does that well into Ghost Rider, and I don't think she does that well into Muldoon. So I think, just like the normal tier list, Alice is probably just somewhere in the middle. Beowulf, I think, will be really, really good this season. For one, he has just random discards, which is always annoying, and he has consistent random discards because he has 3 of them, and they're on schemes, so they can't get feinted by enemy cancels or anything like that. And he just has a big-bodied sidekick. He has a ton of health. His defenses aren't too shabby, and he can really lay into you when he does attack you, although he doesn't do it that often. I think he'll be good into Bloody Mary because Vigor and Courage just absolutely messes up Bloody Mary trying to get natural 3-card in-hand 3-action turns. I think his ability just counters Ghost Rider's ability because, yes, please vroom vroom me for free rage. I think he does really well into Jekyll and Hyde because eventually you just get to the point where Hyde can't attack you because Grendel will kill him. And I think he does well into Little Red because No Contest Expecteth. This is like the one matchup where you can actually use that on an enemy sidekick. If the Huntsman doesn't have knives in the basket, No Contest Expecteth is a guaranteed kill. And I think Beowulf does really good into Luke Cage because even if you're Grendeling a Heroes for Hire, that's the 3-value second shot basically, Luke Cage only has 13 health and no healing. So Grendel just eats him alive, especially if he's attacking with like a Commanding Impact or a Sweet Christmas. If he loses 6 health from a Grendel, he only has 13 health, no healing. You basically just won the game on that. So I think Beowulf's matchup spread looks really good this season. He probably has even matchups into Alice and Moon Knight, and probably subpar matchups into King Arthur and especially Muldoon. But I think Beowulf is looking really good this season. Bloody Mary is, I want her to be good. I just think she has a little bit of problems with inconsistency just from playing at a low hand count. And she's a little bit undertuned, but I think Ghost Rider and Little Red are potentially good matchups because they each only have 2 feints, so you can probably make something happen there. She could potentially do good into King Arthur as well, just because I played that matchup, and it seems that a really aggressive Bloody Mary can cause problems for King Arthur. But that one's a little bit of a stretch because Arthur can hit you really hard with his boosts over things like Mirror Image, and you just generally, I don't think, have a fun time if that game goes particularly long. I don't think she really does well into Beowulf, Alice, or Moon Knight. Luke Cage can be an even matchup. Don't really know about Jekyll and Hyde, but she has potential against Muldoon. She's decent into ranged fighters is what Chad tells me, but she's like the one true aggro fighter in this roster, I should say, and I think she's a lot of people's like second favorite hero of this pool. So I think she'll get a lot of plays, even though I don't think she'll necessarily be the most viable hero, but she has some potential, I think. Ghost Rider, I don't really know about Ghost Rider. You can use the vroom vroom strategy and just only use your ability, just maneuver, boost, and hit your opponent for 1 or 2 damage every turn using your Hellfire. That should just delete some heroes like Alice, who only has 13 health. You just don't have to attack her in that matchup, and she doesn't get the healing from Looking Glass off. Muldoon only has 14 health, and he has multiple sidekicks, although he is the only hero in this pool with multiple sidekicks, so Ghost Rider's usage, I think, is a little bit less than it otherwise would be if like Medusa or Dracula were in this pool as well. So outside of Muldoon and Alice, I'm not sure who else he does really well into. I think Luke Cage, maybe. It seems like the other heroes all have either too much health or can deal too much damage to him, or just have ways of subverting his damage, like Beowulf gaining rage from it, or Moon Knight being Khonshu and just not taking any damage. So Ghost Rider, I think, will be really good into Alice, InGen, and Luke. And other than that, not entirely sure. But he is a new fighter. I really don't know how to optimally play him myself, so some people can make magic happen. Muldoon, I think, will also be decent this season. He's the only ranged hero, and besides Little Red and King Arthur, he's the only one with ranged sidekicks. So that is just an inherent advantage. We have seen in the pre-Battle of Legends Volume 2 meta, Muldoon was like the 4th best hero in the game. So maybe without the presence of other big 3 members or Yanenga, maybe he can assert dominance once again over everyone. Should be good into Alice, should be good into Beowulf. I think is also good into Jekyll and Hyde if you position your workers and or hero around pure evil. Should be good into King Arthur. Probably good into Luke Cage, just because Luke doesn't have a lot of health, so the traps will be even more impactful, because 8 damage is more than half of Luke Cage's measly little health total. Probably won't do good into Ghost Rider. Probably won't do good into Little Red either. Although it's Muldoon, your positioning, if your positioning is good, you have the best map control in the game. So anything is possible, and I expect people like Prospero probably to do really well with InGen this season. Jekyll and Hyde is just another kind of, I don't want to say bottom feeder necessarily, but he's a risky pick just because of his consistency. If your cards don't line up in the right order, you're not going to have a fun time. And there are, I think, stronger picks this season. His only good matchup, I think, is Luke Cage, just because you have around 10 auto damage. You have a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 12. So if you just deal a bunch of auto damage to Luke Cage, all your 5s will deal at least 1 damage. So it's just about drawing all your cards and then playing them. And I think you should win that matchup, but doesn't really look good for everyone else. King Arthur is another low-level pick. Might do good into Ghost Rider and Little Red because they only have 2 feints. And it is said, it's theorized that King Arthur does well into Little Red, but I'm not sold on that thought necessarily. He also could do good into Beowulf, but other than that, I guess like if you're playing Jekyll and Mary, those are also like kind of low-level heroes that maybe you can do well into. It's just it's King Arthur as Arthur. You know, I really don't have to go into that much depth to sell you on why he isn't top tier or anything like that, but I expect that pattern of losses to continue for him. Little Red looks really good because, in my opinion, she's probably like a top 7 fighter in the game, especially with the rise of Battle of Legends Volume 2 characters that she's really good into, like Yanenga and Sun Wukong, and she's decent into all the big 3, except those 5 heroes are not present right now. So really the only other top tier hero she's good into is Muldoon, and other than that, she has some bad matchups. Alice can be rough, Bayo can be rough, King Arthur can be rough, and I think Moon Knight will be really rough for her. So despite her doing well into Muldoon and probably Luke Cage with all her auto damage, I think she'll be less viable than people think, but she'll still be a popular pick just because she's Little Red. Another thing you have to remember about Ladder is that map and position pick, unlike the Conquest format, where follower or the loser of subsequent games gets to pick map and position, in Ladder you only get one. You either pick map or you pick position, and when those things aren't tied together, it makes it really hard for Little Red to have explosive starts with the Thing, using Never Leave the Path to just blow out all your enemy's sidekicks. And so without that, I think Little Red actually is a lot less good in this format overall, in addition to not really having great matchups this season. Luke Cage, I think, just gets absolutely hammered this season. Beowulf wrecks him with Grundle. That's just too much damage. Ghost Rider just wrecks him with the damage from his ability because Luke Cage doesn't have a lot of health. Muldoon is probably bad for him. Jekyll and Hyde has too much auto damage. Little Red has too much auto damage. So, and like the Moon Knight matchup is not good for him at all. So like you're looking at Bloody Mary, which I've played once. It seemed roughly even. Alice, which actually you might be decent into because you have a 4-value feint, which is really good against Big Alice, and King Arthur. So like Alice, Bloody Mary, King Arthur are like the ideal matchups you're looking at, and so I'm a fan of Luke. I think he's super interesting to play. Just this season, I don't think will be super favorable for him. And then Moon Knight. Moon Knight is like Alice. He's kind of a weird, slightly inconsistent fighter with just a huge power potential because of his ability. An extra 2 damage on attacks is insane. The fact that you don't take auto damage while you're also big is insane. And you have a small form and like a mobile form available to you as well with the 3 different heroes that you have. So like Alice, I don't think Moon Knight counters anyone necessarily, but I think he just has a very decent matchup spread. I think it's really hard to theorize or theory craft matchups about this character, but I think he's probably good into Bloody Mary, probably good into Ghost Rider, probably really good into Little Red as well. And everyone else, I think he's just solid into. Even Muldoon. You have Moon Knight to get a free 2 spaces of movement at the start of your turn to pop a trap. Khonshu doesn't take auto damage, so you can walk over traps and just not care. And of course, when you're Mr. Knight, you just take 1 less damage from Muldoon's attacks. And Muldoon has a lot of low value chip attacks that he wants to attack with you. He wants to attack you frequently with. And if you're just throwing out block cards with the +1 modifier on it, I really don't think InGen has good ways to hit over that consistently, except for shoot her and they should all be destroyed, which you still have decent value blocking with We're All in This Together and the 4 that draws you 2 cards if you take 2 damage, which you're probably not using as Mr. Knight. You just need to hit Muldoon in that matchup like a couple times, and you should win, especially if you're Khonshu. So overall, there's an interesting pool of heroes, some better than others, some worse. Let's talk about the maps really quickly. The maps for this season are Marmorial, Sunnydale High, Raptor Paddock, Soho, and the Raft. And I don't have an image of the Raft at the time of recording. I'm sorry about that. So are there interesting things about the maps this season? Yes. Sometimes it doesn't really matter, but like last season, Medusa and Sherwood were both legal, which is just a nightmare for the other player. Marmorial seems like the best ranged map of this set, so Muldoon, Little Red, and King Arthur probably might want to go there, although this isn't the best Muldoon map. Raptor Paddock is a really good Muldoon map. It's also Jekyll and Hyde's best map by far. There's one spot, it's in the tower, that's just a really good spot for Jekyll. So other than that, I'm not entirely sure how influential the maps will be. It seems like a lot of big maps. I think the Raptor Paddock is like the only small map. I think Beowulf probably wants to play on big maps so he can run away and exhaust the opponent. Bloody Mary's best map is probably Raptor Paddock. There's a lot of ways to trigger a jump scare on that map. It's a nuisance. In Little Red, I don't think has a good opportunity to do the thing. Maybe on Sunnydale, but that requires your opponent to pick the map and then you to pick first, which I don't know if they'll do. And the Raft, I think, is like way too far away for her to do the thing on. The Raft also has items, which should shake up like a more competitive focused format somehow. I think we're just using the traditional rules where they're just randomly put out at the beginning of the game. We'll see how that comes into play. And the Raptor Paddock also has the other gimmick of this roster with the one-way arrows, which everyone is probably a little bit familiar with. Bloody Mary, King Arthur, Ghost Rider, and anyone with like skirmish or leap away. So like Beowulf, Muldoon, Alice, Jekyll. Actually, almost everyone has a way to push someone else into the pit. It just might depend on winning a combat. But I think Ghost Rider probably has the best way to put someone in the pit, in addition with Arthur. So Raptor Paddock is also a pretty good Arthur map too. So now let's talk about my tier list for this season. Everyone loves tier lists. Everyone always wants them. So I said, hey, I'll make a tier list of how good I think the fighters will be this season. So Here's a nice ladder season 2 tier list. I think Moon Knight will be the best hero this season. I really don't think he has bad matchups, and even the close matchups are still definitely winnable for him. I am absolutely sold on Moon Knight ever since my first impressions video, where I was like, maybe he won't be that good. I actually played with him and I was like, oh man, I think this guy's legit. So I'm looking at Moon Knight to be the best hero this season. I think Beowulf, with his matchup spread, will just be really, really good. He can basically beat everyone in the tiers below him, and he has like a chance against Muldoon. It's not great, but he has a chance. And Muldoon, being the only ranged hero in this group, he's still probably elite, so we'll see how good he can be now without the Battle of Legends Volume 2 heroes that he is not good against present. Little Red is probably a little bit lower than you expected. I think she'll be popular, but just not great in this meta. Ghost Rider, I honestly have no clue. That's why he's kind of middle of the pack. It depends on which strategy for him is prevalent, either just using your ability to vroom vroom or actually playing like a straight up game by actually using his cards. So I'm not sure, although he seems a little bit underpowered when you're looking at just his cards. Cat just sneezed. Bless you. Alice, again, just like a middle of the road pick that has the strength to win matchups. Just I don't see her consistently doing it, and I think just Moon Knight is probably a little bit of a better version of Alice, especially with the fact that he can't take auto damage as Khonshu. We'll see. And Bloody Mary, also probably a little bit lower than I would have liked, but I could not rank her above anyone else in this set, and I don't think she is in the tier below her. I think she's a lot better than Jekyll and Luke Cage will be this season just based on matchup spread, but she has hidden potential, and I think the Mary players in particular will be able to get something going with her. Shout out to you, Chad. You got this. Jekyll and Hyde is the first hero in the dumpster tier. He's just not great in general, although maybe Feeble or Zero can find success with him if they're going to pick him, but I don't even know how well he does into Moon Knight, so I think that's the real kicker. I don't think he does well into InGen or Beowulf either, so I don't really see the appeal of him. And I think Luke Cage, just there's too much auto damage this season. We talked about this before. I just think he has a lot of bad matchups, which just it's not going to be fun. Although he definitely can win some just because he has a lot of big attacks and decent defenses, but when your opponent doesn't need to attack you to win, that's where the issues start. And King Arthur is the Buffy tier hero of this season. The Arthur mains, like Twister Strudel, they can do it. I just think you have to be really committed to him, and you have to get lucky in your game, and your opponent has to pick someone that maybe isn't as high on the list as they should pick, but it's just business as usual for Jekyll and Arthur. I just think in a limited roster format, I think they have the best chance of improving compared to just the full lineup of heroes available in the game. But just this season, I don't really see people that they can be good into consistently that will be consistently picked by people trying to play the best heroes. So this is just my opinion of what I think the meta will be this month. Maybe I'll do a short video in like 3 weeks just checking in and seeing how my predictions were. Like I said, I love doing like mini sectioned meta analysis. I just think it's so cool to see which heroes are better or worse when other heroes are taken out of the ecosystem, because the meta is like an ecosystem and a lot of predators were removed from it with this roster rotation. So, maybe the prey, maybe the bottom tiers like Jekyll and Arthur can see success this season. I just don't see it, but I would love to be proven wrong. So please let me know what you think of this take in the comments. Please let me know what you think of this format. Do you like this kind of ladder meta analysis at the beginning of the season? And we'll see how it plays out. Please let me know. And if you have any predictions that are different than mine, also leave a comment, because I would love to hear them and see a thought process that's different than mine. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, like, subscribe, sign up for Ladder on UMLeague, and yeet!